Hi there, folks. I'd just like to go over some things that we talked about in class today related to Essay 1 and its development for those of you who weren't able to attend that meeting. So I'm just going to start by looking at the assignment sheet. All right, and explaining some fundamental requirements of this assignment. For starters, it's a 3 to 5 page critical analysis. And what that means is that you're taking a very close look at the two articles on your selected topic that you also picked from those I provided, and pulling out specific statements from those articles to analyze more closely to determine whether or not those arguments are strong or weak, or whether or not they've been effective in their purpose, which is to persuade an audience. All right, so that's the overall purpose of this assignment, is critical analysis. And that means that you're not making your own argument about the topic. Often that's a hard shift for students to make because you know, you've been told, make an argument, what's your argument, over and over. And in this case, your job is not to make an argument about the topic. I guess you're making kind of an argument, but your argument is going to be about somebody else's argument. Your job is to analyze the strengths and weaknesses in the two articles that you picked, not make your own argument about doping in sports or criminal justice reform or gun control or any of the other topics that you picked. And I hope that makes sense. So that's the first thing that you need to know about this assignment. The second thing you need to know about this assignment is that you need to minimize summary. Okay, there's going to be some summary in your essay in the form of you presenting or representing in your own words the ideas from the text, which you then analyze. Okay, so for example, you shouldn't have a whole paragraph where you're explaining what the argument is in one or two of the articles. You want to present ideas from the text, as I said before, and you can do that in summary or direct quote or paraphrase. But after presenting that idea, you need to move quickly to analyzing that idea. Okay, what are its strengths and weaknesses? How does it function in support of the author's argument? Does it do a good job? Is it helpful to the argument? Why or why not? Is it a valid point in support of the argument? Why or why not? And that should be the main thing that you're doing in your essay, is that kind of analysis, and not too much summary. All right, and I already talked about this. Avoid making your own argument about the topic. And this explains a little bit more about that. Sources. You've picked 2 articles from those I provided. Those are your assigned sources. And in addition to those, you need to find one more on your own that's no older than 6. Okay, and that third article, you can be anything. It can be an article you find from one of the college databases. It can be a source you find on the internet by Googling your topic. As long as, in your judgment, it is a credible source for an academic paper. It can be a video, it can be a news report, it can be a website, anything, as long as it's credible in your judgment. All right, let's see, what else? Those are topics. We already talked about that. You already picked 2 articles. All right, and these are some suggestions for the steps you should take in developing your ideas for this essay. All right, you want to do enough research to become better informed about the issue and to find your third article that's no older than 6. But you definitely want to make sure you understand the context for the debate on your issue, because you're going to need to explain that in your introduction. Okay, and then there's some more suggestions for development steps, but I want to focus on this one right here, number 7, which is a list of suggestions for how to approach your analysis. Okay, different approaches you can take to analyzing the statements that you pull from the articles. I call those points of analysis. All right. You can look at the evidence that the author has provided. Is it sufficient, accurate, relevant, credible? All right. You should, every essay, for every essay one should be doing this. It should be analyzing facts and inferences, which is the essential exercise that you guys did with Tougher Grading Better for Students. Okay. And this is another important element in any argument, is how effectively does the author of the argument deal with opposing viewpoints, presenting and then answering those arguments that disagree with the position that the author has taken in the debate. Because as you guys know, any successful argument has to do that. It's got to present and then effectively answer opposing viewpoints. All right, and then here's some suggestions for developing a thesis, which we already talked about. All right, and suggestions for how to focus your analysis. All right, you can focus on one of the assigned articles if you think one is sufficiently problematic for you to have plenty to say about it. You can focus most of your attention on one, and use the second one and then the third one you find on your own to support the points that you're making about the first one. Or you can focus equal attention on both of the articles that you picked from those I provided, and then use the third one to support the points you make about those two or the one. Okay, so you can use the third one in a variety of different ways. All right, you can use it, as I just said, to support the points that you're making about analysis, your points of analysis about the other two. For example, if you find an article that's making a really good argument, especially compared to the two articles you picked from those I provided, then you can point to that third article or third source and say, this is how you make an argument. This is how you deal with opposing viewpoints. And this particular article highlights the weaknesses in the other two. You can use it that way. Or you can use it to help you develop an introduction. You can find a source that provides you with basic information about the topic, background information you can use to develop your intro. All right, so there's multiple ways you can use that third article. And then this gives you some suggestions for how to develop your essay generally, and what kinds of elements need to be in it. The thesis, the body paragraphs, the conclusion, the introduction. All right, and then these are final draft requirements that also appear in the Canvas assignment for where you'll submit your final draft of this essay. So I'm not gonna spend too much time looking at those. Let me minimize this. All right, and then the next thing that I wanna talk about here that I didn't talk about in class today is basic formatting, basic MLA style formatting and documentation. And I'm assuming, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly in the manner of review, because I'm assuming that you guys as English 2 students are already at least somewhat familiar with basic MLA format and documentation. So this is a sample research paper that I used to just review the elements of MLA documentation and formatting. And your essay, when it's done in its final draft, should look like this one, in that it should have a header with your last name and the page number. It should have a heading formatted like this with this information in it. It should have a title that's centered like this one is. That's the whole title with the obligatory colon. Every academic essay has got to have a colon. That I'm not serious, I'm kidding. And then you notice the whole thing is double spaced. There's no extra line space in this essay. There's no extra line space between the heading and the title. No extra line space between the title and the first line of the first paragraph. No extra line space between paragraphs. All double spaced, and 1-inch margins all around. Okay. Let me look at the works cited page and talk about formatting. Here's the works cited page, which in MLA is the bibliography. Other documentation styles call this a bibliography, or a sources page. In MLA, we call it the works cited because it's the sources that you cited in your paper. And it's arranged alphabetically according to author's last name, if your source has a named author, or the next best piece of information about that source that you have. In this case, this is the name of an organization that is essentially the author of this article called 2005 Electronic Monitoring and Surveillance Survey. All right. And this is the title because there's no named author. This is an internet article and there's no named author for this article. So you just alphabetize it according to the next best piece of information you have, which is the title of the article. This one has a named author, all right, and so on. And notice how this is formatted. It's formatted using a hanging indent. Hanging indent means the first line comes to the margin, and then subsequent lines that go with that same source are indented 5 spaces. All right, and you can tell just by looking at this why it's formatted that way, because you can tell what information goes with what source just by looking at it. Okay, you can tell all the information about the American Management Association and E-Policy Institute article goes with this source because it's all indented 5 spaces underneath the name of the source and so on. Okay, so your works cited page has to be indented that way. Notice there's no numbers. Okay, these sources are not numbered. There's no bullet points here. Okay, you just use the hanging indent to indicate to differentiate between source information here. Okay, what else? What else? This is a parenthetical reference, sometimes referred to as an in-text citation. And as you probably know, these are page numbers of the source. This happens to be a print source, so it has pages. There are going to be times, though, when you're dealing with sources that don't have any pages. And then you just give the author's name if you have it. Up here, let's see, where's the one I wanted to show you? Oh yeah, here, automatically. If you remember from the works cited page I just showed you, this is the first word in the title of an article. There's no named author, there are no page numbers. So all the information you have to put in the parenthetical reference here is this information right here. And then notice up here, this is a block quote, and you format direct quotes, the exact words of the source this way when you've got more than 4 lines, or 4 lines or more, I should say. So let's say you're typing along, this is a direct quote, you get to the end of the 4th line, and then you would block it, you would format it this way. Okay, any less than that, you don't block it, you just integrate it with your text. All right, but this is the parenthetical reference for this direct quote. These are the page numbers on which this quote appears in the article. And there's no author's name in this parenthetical reference, sometimes called an in-text citation, because the author is mentioned up here already. Okay, we know this is Lane. We know this is from Lane, and we can go find that on the list of works cited. There's Lane right there, alphabetized. Okay, so that information has already been provided. There's no need to provide it again. All right, the logic behind all of these documentation styles, MLA, APA, Chicago, Turabian, is to streamline the necessary process of documentation and attribution so that there's not a big mess in your paper with information that doesn't need to be there, clogging up the works. All of that information is on the works cited page. Okay, I think that's enough for now. You're going to have 3 sources on your list of works cited, at least, right? Those 2 articles that you picked from those I provided, and then the 3rd one you find on your own. Okay, so you will need a works cited page for this essay with at least 3 sources on it. And yeah, I think that's all you need to know right now for MLA documentation for your final draft. You don't need to worry about this so much for your rough draft. So let me close that and let's talk about that. Okay, so in class today, topic groups discussed the planning that they had done so far for this essay. the thesis statement, the outline, methods of organization, the introduction, what kind of information should go in an introduction for that particular topic. And then you're going to write a rough draft and submit it to this assignment right here. And if you've never done an online peer review in Canvas, you're going to want to review these instructions carefully. All right, everything you need to know about how to do this is right here. Okay, trust me, I have revised this multiple times. I know everything a student needs to know in order to do this assignment is explained in these instructions. All right, don't hesitate to ask me questions if any of it doesn't make sense to you, but do read it carefully first. All right, if you've done a peer review in Canvas already, then you're good to go. All right, but again, if you haven't, here's a video that explains how it works. Here's a link you can click to a set of instructions for how to give feedback on the rough draft in Canvas using this software tool that's embedded in Canvas called Doc Viewer. Okay. All right, and then you need to download, where are the instructions? Oh, there they are. Where's the feedback? All right. Okay, so what I'm looking for right now is the specific feedback document in here. And I'm tired, it's midnight, so I think I'm overlooking it and I don't want to waste any more time poking around in here looking for it. Okay, so after I end this recording, I'll look for it and make sure it's in there. But there's something, oh, I know why I can't find it, because it's in the rubric. There we go. I used to include a document that students would need to download with guidelines for giving feedback, but those are all in the rubric now. So never mind. Use the rubric and use the Doc Viewer commenting tools within Canvas to give your feedback. Okay. Alrighty. And then the last thing I want to point out to you here, or the last two things, are these two sample essays. These are essays written previously by students of this assignment, and they received good grades. They both received A's. So you can look at those for examples of what it is you're going for here. But you shouldn't worry if your essay isn't exactly like these. Okay, yours is going to be different. Yours will be different from these. Yours will be different from your classmates in this class, because you're all working with different topics and articles, and you have different minds. You're going to notice different things. All right, and so then the last thing I want to point out here is this here, deadline. The 29th at noon, 12 p.m. noon. That's in the afternoon, that's lunchtime. I'm emphasizing this because I've had students become confused. Okay, did I mean midnight? No, I didn't, I meant noon, all right? And everybody needs to upload their rough drafts by that deadline so that I can assign peer review. When you upload your rough drafts, then I go here and I assign peer review, and I'm going to try to do that according to topic. I'm going to try to assign people to review their classmates' essays who are writing on the same topics, so you guys can give each other very knowledgeable feedback. Sometimes that won't be possible, and it's especially difficult if people have not submitted their essays on time, because I can't assign peer review to anyone who hasn't submitted an essay. All right. Okay, and I think that's about it for this recording. So I hope you're all getting ready to have a great weekend, and I'll see you again next week.